Good morning, good Friday, the last Friday for the year for us in terms of recording. Next Friday, I think will be the 27th. Everybody's hopefully going to be on vacation. David, welcome back.
Thank you, Mukun. How are you?
And we have Abhi again. Hey, Abhi, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You have a very nice background studio image look on this podcast. So you're one of the few people that looks like you're in a professional setting. David looks like he's in a really fun place. I look like I want to hide what I'm doing. But it's good to talk to you guys. Today's topic is going to be on go to market for B2B specifically. Now, we have a lot of customers who are primarily B2B customers. We do have some B2C as well. But in 2025, the topic of today is in 2025, if you were running GTM for a B2B company, what do you think has changed from, let's say, the last 2 years, not 5 years, 2 years? The reason I'm saying that is because to give context, in the last 2 years, AI has emerged, which is dramatically different than what we should expect before that. Number two, the COVID playbook, as people used to call it, raise a lot of money, spend a lot of money because it was zero interest rate policy situation. So a lot of startups, a lot of companies had a lot of money to spend on a whole host of things, including BDRs and SDRs and everything else. So their playbook was generate a lot of leads, spend a lot of money, and convert a lot of people because there were a lot of people with a lot of money. But that has changed. And the third interesting change has also been I would say, interesting angle from my side has been the acceptance, if you will, of how even platforms like Instagram and TikTok now have B2B ads, which is very surprising to me. Of course, advertising on LinkedIn has taken off as well, but suddenly it seems like I'm seeing a lot more B2B advertising on Instagram, not on TikTok, but on YouTube. It used to be only a consumer play, but let me kick it off with maybe Abhi going first. Abhi, do you agree these are the three big things, or are there other things about the world that has changed in the last 2 years that should affect B2B GTM?
I think the most fundamental thing we have gone past is like growth at all cost is now sustainable growth. Like that is the key stuff, which has been long due. I'm glad we're here. The second, like you already said, COVID kind of accelerated the whole digital transformation in a way that now everything is digital first, before anything else. So natively, people are thinking how to go about that channel, like it, and it's super noisy, super crazy. Forget about transformation. You are now on an Olympic level race to get the attention from every individual, whether you are B2B company, B2C company. End of the day, you are looking for an attention, like they say, right? From human attention. And there's only limited hours in the day, there's only limited things we can process in our brain. And then we have to have like 5,000 things to be done. And then, we need to take quick decision on this offer and that campaign, work wise, personal, whole bunch. And then the third, which is kind of super critical aspect, is everyone has burned out, both the buyer and the seller. Like the sellers are like, totally, I feel for them. It has never been so hard to sell anything today. And it is, as a buyer, it's equally more challenging because there was a time when you had like these one of those reports and one of those quadrants and one of those categories and one of those choices, unlimited choices. There's no way you can cut out some sort of two by two in it. So we're inundated with like choices. So I'll take a pause and see how does
David,
that.
what do you think is your view on what's changed in the last 2 years that B2B marketers, especially go-to-market, marketing ops, all of those guys, what should they be thinking about given that the last 2 years has seen change? Or is there any other change that you see?
Well, I mean, the point you mentioned with, sort of free capital earlier is one of the first thing that pops into my mind. Because yeah, when interest rates are low, um, cash doesn't have a lot of value, and so you can invest into human capital. But if with interest rates the way they are, assets are king. And so like you can literally just keep your money in a bank and it'll earn a lot of interest, right? So then the emphasis becomes more focused on how do we get more out of the people that we have? And so I think that's where AI is going to play a big role in 2025 and in the foreseeable future is like human AI augmentation. How do I do more with less?
Yeah, that was going to be the next segue. So it's a very good segue overall, right? Which is if you look at those three or four things that we talked about, number one, like you mentioned, like Abhi mentioned, like I mentioned, it's no longer easy money, which leads to not growth at all costs. Number two is AI, generative AI. And the third, now I figured out what the word for it is. It's a consumerization of business marketing, right? Because even business marketing is becoming, B2B marketing is becoming more consumer oriented. So the first one, let's take the first one, the growth at all costs versus sustainable growth. What strategy change would you make if that was one of the first things on your list? Because the next one I'm going to talk about is okay, now that you have lesser budget, you're not doing well, actually, they're both very related. So let's have David, you say, okay, if you were now head of marketing and you've got this new normal, as we call it, lesser money, but you've got to generate more leads. Fragmented buyers, like Abhi mentioned, they've got not just a Gartner document or a Forrester document. Now they've got like hundreds of things, including YouTube videos giving them advice and everything else in the middle. What strategy change would you make? Would you say, okay, throw the playbook and start fresh, or would you say tweak the playbook a little bit? Primarily, the old playbook was generate a lot of leads up front, as much marketing as you can do, get them into an MQL situation, pass them off to sales, and then do lead generation for the ones that are not passed on to sales. If that was the overall strategy, what would you change? Would you make a wholesale change, or would you tweak around the edges on this one?
Um, I might just go back to kind of like what are my core KPIs and like what was helping the company grow the most? Because like one of the things I've seen across sort of all the companies I've worked at and industries I've been in are like you have KPIs, core metrics that sort of serve your existence, and then there's core KPIs that service, the company. And so I might go back and take a look at, okay, like what were sort of the true signals? What were the metrics that identified efficiencies, rather than just things that make me look good?
I mean, what do you think? Strategy, big change, tweaking change?
I think, I mean, the time we are in, there's no such thing called tweak change anymore. So everything is big change, right now. But I think it has started to happen already with high growth companies for the last couple of years. We've seen the result now. So it's not like just because some guru is saying just make the big change, you do it. You actually have a result. You actually have in a same market situation, same category, there are super high growth companies who are doing amazingly well. And it's not like they're run by maybe lesser resources, lesser team, but they're more coordinated versus the incumbents or companies which have been not doing so well in spite, with the best strategy and product. So I'll go back to what maybe David kind of mentioned is it all starts with that one big hairy question like where are we going, you know, this year or next year or whenever we're kind of looking up. Where are we going as a company? And then sort of come back on that. Like what would lead up to get to that goal? Like what is our strategy? What is our GTM strategy? And that's the kind of discussion we're trying to do. And everything should relate back to that master KPI or master goal. Like, and then everything start becoming more clearer. We can't do anymore. We don't live in this world. We keep doing arm waving and say, we have to grow. And that's the big line. And like, okay, let's keep growing. We're big enough. We got to beat that competition. We got to do that. Like, we have to be extremely prescriptive. If you're the CEO of a company and you own the GTM strategy, which you should be able to clearly define where you're going this year.
So let's look at GTM strategy for a little bit, right? Depending on your business model and the type of company you are, let's say, for a simple example, for B2B, there are five major GTM strategies. GTM strategy number one is top-down enterprise-led sales. GTM strategy number two, bottom-up enterprise-led sales. GTM strategy number three is outbound calling. GTM strategy number four is ABM. You focus on specific accounts. And then you have product-led growth and community-led growth and other kinds of growth right at the bottom. So sales-led growth, product-led growth. Within sales-led growth, you could be enterprise top-down, enterprise bottom-up. Now, which of these strategies do you think has seen the most change, or is it that all of them have seen change, including ABM to sales-led to product-led to community-led and everything else in between?
Mukund, I want sorry to do that, but I want to call out like I personally look at and seeing from a lot of other folks, GTM strategy is only one thing. It's
Yeah.
actually a strategic narrative or overview on where you're going and things like that. Now, to operationalize the GTM strategy, we have all these GTM motions, which is some of the one you're talking about, which is partner led, product led, sales led, also all sort of thing. But our overall strategy should be like, why and what. And the operational part of it should be like how and when, sort of a thing. So that's how I kind of look at it. I know. Do you agree or what do you think, David?
Yeah. David, what do you think?
Yeah, you got to approach it from all angles, and but more importantly, you need to have a strategy that gets input and feedback from all teams, right? So if you're not aligned, and it's not just sales and marketing alignment, it's also the people that are making your product, right? And we've seen this time and time again, the whether it's someone that's making your clothes or someone that's engineering your software or someone that's creating a fabrication, like if they're not aligned with the vision of where where the company wants to go, like let's say there's a polar winter in 2025 and I'm selling shorts, I've got to get my factory lined up with selling jackets, right? Um, so it's got to be cross departmental. And then as leaders, you have to be like ready not just to defend your strategy, but you also have to be able to take criticism and turn that criticism like into forward momentum.
Let's change gears a little bit and talk about how does this tech stack affect in 2025? We've heard the term modern marketers, modern marketing teams, modern GTM teams, right? Instead of being silos, there's a sales team that does sales things, there's a marketing team that does marketing things, and then customer success and product do their own thing. Now you have an aligned GTM team. And we've heard from several customers aligning everybody around the GTM strategy is one of the big challenges for them. And hence, aligning everybody around a tech stack is also challenging. Now, we've seen different tech stack. There's a MarTech tech stack, there's a RevOps tech stack, there's a GTM tech stack. What's your view on these different tech stacks? Do we need all of these, or are people in our customer base, are they ripping and replacing? Are they changing? Are they finding that new things need to be added? Or are they just saying, no, this has become too complicated, or there's way too many things, we need to remove all of them? David, why don't you start?
I think one thing that we're seeing that I haven't seen historically is the volume of data. So in my past, SMBs, we're talking about I don't know, like startups to um, I don't know, companies that am operating a few years. I never kind of ran across the data volume problem with them so much.
Even with
Um,
small companies?
with small companies, yeah, it didn't seem to be a big problem. But now that, like you were mentioning, now that you have all of these different tools available, all these point solutions, The data volume is just skyrocketed. So like in some of these recent conversations we've been having, like with that SMB company that we had just the other day. I mean, they're working with at least, I don't know, 15 to 20 different pieces of tech that are all siloed. And, smaller companies never really had to think warehouse first. And so they don't have any sort of central data repository, right? So there's no way for them to see the full funnel or the full life cycle of a customer. And this is not something I saw a few years back. But now with the volume, um, I think a lot of even smaller companies need to start thinking about a warehouse first tech
Approach.
stack
Yeah,
approach. Yeah.
that's very interesting. Abhi, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, we're all tech guys, we're all data guys, but somehow I think, tool and tech should come last. Going back to your original question, I think it all starts with strategy on where we're going. And then sort of you think about operationalizing it depending on what resources you have, what channels you can do, what is the right time of the year, where you stand with it, what is the competition landscape, which market you're in, and based on that you decide which motion or which channel or what is your distribution network or leverage whatsoever. And then to operationalize that execution is when you start thinking about tools and data. It is regardless now to mention that the modern digital marketing run on data. So that's like table stakes discussion. There's no like what and why and why not sort of question when it's come to data-led marketing motion or data-led GTM strategy. And that's what David is trying to make a point that if it is table stake and everything is running, like that's the electricity which kind of running this whole GTM engine, then why are we just relying on point-based solution? Why not kind of build a sustainable engine where we can actually leverage this data? Because otherwise you're not like you have a bunch of point solution, you have a bunch of data in it, but how you actually utilizing the data, how you actually consuming it, how you taking decision on that data set, that would require a reset thinking, which requires like data first thinking, then a tool first thinking. In my opinion, that's how I look at it.
One of the other things that is interesting to me that I've heard from a lot of our customers last week, we had, or this week actually, is it? Yeah, man, it almost feels like it's last week, but it's this week. We had a couple of customers that we had discussions with. We were on conference calls with them, right? They seem to be mentioning the word buying groups. Now, we have been in enterprise sales and sales in B2B for the longest time. Enterprise sales has always been a complex sale, meaning that there's a user, there's a buyer, there's a champion, there's procurement, there's a CFO. They all have different needs, if you will. One person usually will lead the effort, usually the champion will, but still you have to be able to convince a lot of different people, which is why you have ROI and TCO as one portion of it, and then use cases and examples, and how do you actually use it, and integration and security. There's so many teams involved. So buying groups is the new team. New term, I would say, although it is an old concept, it seems to be a newer term that seems to be coming about. Abhi, talk to me a little bit about how does marketing in the concept of buying groups change? Is it really change anything, or is it just a nice term that people use to be able to put them all together?
Yeah. I've seen this movie like so many times. I think it's just a bunch of new key terms popping up every now and then. Traditionally there was this, we used to word champions all the time, right? Even now, champion just found another new rebirth. Um, but I think it's pretty much like who actually is the line of business or who actually where the buck stop or what is the problem they're trying to solve. And then natural champions emerge, people who actually are the responsible for a certain KPI or certain goal are usually the people who are trying to solve certain problems. Something is broken and And naturally companies are kind of emerging. We are increasingly seeing cross-functional teams now. So I wouldn't say like what has changed actually to your question. From traditional time, it was like, there's a group called customer success, which won't talk to marketing, and marketing won't talk to sales, and they will buy something here and they will buy something here. That actually is changing. We're seeing increasingly people coming together as one team, and there may be a champion from marketing or champion from sales who are kind of putting this together, the data together, the tool stack together, so they all work in a coordinated way. Which I think 10 years back, and coming from a data science kind of team background, we used to often joke that nobody wants to share their set of data with their own organization, different team, which increasingly now I'm started seeing the lot of coordination, a lot of communication, but we're still at 2025, going to be 2025 in a week or so. We're still talking about marketing and sales alignment because there are still, the incentives are not aligned, no matter what. So it all points to where's the strategy, where's the team incentive, how they're comped, how they're measured, and who shares what data, sort of a thing. So, but increasingly, going back to your point, we're seeing some lot of cross-functional collaboration, and maybe that's the new buying group, for that matter.
David, buying groups, what are you seeing? The interesting part, David, was the buying group before used to be all within IT that I used to sell to. It used to be you had to get the check-in from the security guy. It used to be you had to get in from the data network guy. You had to get in from the apps guy, and you had to get in from the business analyst. Now the buying groups are different because within marketing, they're the buying group themselves, right? So you've got the digital marketing person, and then you've got the CMO, and then you've got the person that is responsible for the MarTech stack, marketing ops. So there's a lot of different stacks. Buying groups, what do you think?
Um, yeah, it's a topic that's been around forever, right? The whole serious decisions demand unit waterfall was that's a mouthful, was all kind of centered around that, right? And the demand unit being this buying group. Um, I don't think it's evolved that much to this day. But you sort of have your key stakeholders, your champions, and then you have their supporting teams. Um, I think for me, it's important to try and get the perspectives of all the people within that demand unit, within the buying group. Like as we're learning, um, like we'll have one conversation with one portion of a team, and their perspective on their pain points can be drastically different from like operators, as an example. And so getting the full picture on sort of what the pain points of the org are require getting information from all these separate personas. So that's really important, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's change gears to the last part of the discussion, which is channels, GTM channels. Now, previously, if you recall, Abhi and I have been around for a little bit as well. The primary channel that you used to focus on is your own sales channel and then a partner channel at best. But now that has just exploded, right? There's a lot more GTM channels that are available, and some of them don't involve anybody in sales as well. If you look at Atlassian, they have the fewest number of salespeople, and there are quite a few companies. Atlassian is one known example, but there are quite a few companies that Visual Website Optimizer is another example that I know that tends not to have salespeople focus a lot on more product-led growth. And most companies don't say we're only doing one thing. They do multiple things. They will do product-led and sales-led. But if you look at channel and you look at the question of what channels should we adopt, what channels are interesting for 2025 that we should explore. And if you think about the strategy that the company is trying to go after, are we seeing fewer channels being adopted at the same time? Are we seeing more channels? For example, we had one of these mid-sized companies that is going to be a customer of ours that we are talking to right now. They have a lot of different brands within their company. Some of their brands actually are channels that are direct, just Google advertising, try, buy, and get up, and other channels are very top down. Are you seeing that? Let's go through that a little bit just to peel that onion, if you will. Talk to me about channels and even when it is a PE-led firm, for example, when Abhi was talking about, what does that change look like? Are channels changing? Are new channels emerging? Or are people just, again, old wine, new package?
No, I think there's something to it. Like we have seen, a sort of a barrage of like these channels emerging, like things which we have never imagined is now emerging, and it's hard to keep up if you're a brand marketer or just putting out your message out there, content out there. It's too much to catch up. I personally had been more like a audience first kind of a person. So the way I look at it is like, what is the audience we're trying to, cater to, and where do they live? And then sort of follow the audience where they are instead of looking at just because we like TikTok and everyone's talking about TikTok. Why not I, launch a campaign right there? It'll look cool, Or how about YouTube? Oh, look, the CEO has been asking me. We haven't done anything much on the YouTube as such. So how about that? So I never sort of understood that having a check on multiple channels and not going anywhere. Instead, like focus on like audience and then nail down one channel really well, then go to the other, then go to the other. I mean, that what I have seen personally has worked out for both like small, big company, whatsoever. I mean, look, if you're like a large CPG and you got a big budget to burn on media budget and you got a massive agency who's helping you out and like, oh, we got to put this brand out there in every channel and place and billboard and train station. You pick a stab. So that's a different thing. But I've been personally a one-on-one personalization guy all my life. So I look at all of this by audience first. I don't know, what do you guys think?
David, B2B and channels.
Um, I, two major points. I think the demographic sort of drives the channel, right? And you think about, I'm a millennial. I hate to say that, but I'm a millennial, and
Why do you hate to
our
say that? It's okay.
well, it got a
Whatever.
bad name, but now there's other generations that are getting worse names. So, my generation was the one that had the biggest transition. I didn't grow up with a cell phone, but smartphones became a thing when I was a teenager. We went from having no internet to having internet while we were young. And so we were able to sort of gradually transition and we had to build our own computers. So, I think millennials are kind of more tech savvy, but we're not digital first. We're not digital native, right? And then you think about the Gen Zs and the Gen Ys, those are the first demographics, first generations that are digital native. They grow up with tablets and smartphones, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's why, like, when you were mentioning, like, tech companies are now advertising on TikTok and stuff, right? If your demographic is falls within that age range, that makes a lot of sense. So that's where a lot of the channel strategy is shifted. Number two, the rise of these LLMs, the proliferation of them, the access to them, right? ChatGPTs, the Perplexities, the Groks, um, all
That's right.
these. Um, I don't, and Google's even saying this, right? A lot of people, their search volume has gone down drastically. So now when I go and search for a product, I might go and ask Perplexity. So in a sense, it's grown the dark funnel because like how do you get that signal? But also in a sense, it's an that's an abstraction of SEO, as you've mentioned, right? To list in Perplexity, you need to list well, like in Bing
Yeah.
or Google. So you
Well, Bing
still kind
first
of
and then
need
Google, but
to,
you're right, because most of these
yeah,
other LLMs, such as ChatGPT and Perplexity, are using the Bing index, not using the
yeah,
Google index. Google doesn't share their index much with everybody.
yeah.
But listen, this was fascinating, both of you guys. I know that both of us, all three of us, also wanted to wish our customers a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you guys in the new year. But 2025, what's your big, I would love this for 2025? Let's start with you, David. What's your big, I love this for 2025?
Taking Saturdays off.
Okay, Abhi, I think he was directing that at you.
No, no, we're all
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
independent kings. So no, I think I look forward to 2025. Like this is that 1 year we are actually seeing that people are paying a lot of attention on building data first foundation. Whether your AI and agents, whatever needs to work well, that's like table stakes. So I'm really, really excited. This is like such an interesting moment for us because all our life we worked, on this missionary approach, and finally now started to see that this is not just a good to have, but it's like table stake, so you got to do it. And if you're not going to do it, your competition is going to do it. So it's a lot of pressure right now we're seeing in the business. So more and more, every new survey we've kind of seen, a lot of folks are like, even the laggards are like jumping in the whole agentic AI revolution, and which starts with data. So excited about that.
Awesome. For me, for 2025, we've talked to a whole host of customers in the last few months. And I think the interesting thing that I'm seeing from a lot of people, what they're excited about is that it seems as if in tech, especially 2023, 2024 was a little bit of a rough period. I wouldn't say that everybody was go-go. After the go-go years of 2020, 2021, 22 as well, 23, 24, lots of layoffs in tech, lots of people. I'm hearing messages of, oh man, this is starting to look better now. We're through the excesses of hiring that happened in 2021, 22. Now that has worn itself away. And I'm actually looking forward to a lot more people seem more excited. Some people are talking about the animal instinct, but I think more than anything else, I think I'm looking forward to the fact that this is going to be more of the great denormalization of growth back in tech. So I think that's pretty exciting overall. But thank you guys both very much. I will see you guys in the first week of January for the new podcast. And Abhi is going to be a regular now because we've made sure that everything works in schedule.
All
Awesome.
right.